The headline in the Washington Examiner read, Pelosi says the Constitution considers her an equal to Trump. Well, is she? Is she as powerful as the President of the United States? And when it comes to the Constitution, really let me back up. See, when it comes to the Democrats, it's all about power and who's got the power and who's going to wield the power and all that jazz. When it comes to the Constitution, nobody has the most power. The power is distributed. And it's based on authority. What authorities does this branch have, or what authority does that branch have? So it's not a matter of who has the most power or who's equal. And if anything, the legislative branch is supposed to be stronger than the executive branch. So if anything, she may be onto something, but not for the right reason. For them, it's all about power. So let's read a little bit of what she had to say, and then we'll comment. After being asked if she considers herself Trump's equal, Pelosi told the New York Times in an interview published, the Constitution does. It wasn't clear if Pelosi was talking about the equality of men and women or their respective political positions in the federal government. Pelosi, Democrat, California, was elected Speaker for the second time when the 116th Congress convened and the Democrats took back control of the House. In taking back the gavel, Pelosi is now the second in line to the presidency after the Vice President, Mike Pence, if Trump were unable to perform his duties as Commander-in-Chief. Okay. So, they're not even sure exactly what she meant. Power. Is that what she means? You know, she's got as much power. All right, real quick lesson. When it comes to the three branches of government, the legislative branch is actually the stronger of the three branches because it's the one that makes laws. The executive branch executes the laws. They can't execute a law that was not created. Therefore, the legislative branch has a little more power in the sense that they're creating what laws are going to exist. And it goes a little bit further than that because the executive branch not only can only execute the laws in place, but the executive branch has no legislative power whatsoever. So when you heard about other presidents, or maybe even this president being accused of creating law with an executive order through regulations, that's unconstitutional because the executive branch has no legislative powers. The judicial branch is not supposed to be stronger than the both of them either. It's supposed to be the weakest of the three branches. The judicial branch is supposed to apply the laws. So you have the maker of the laws, legislative branch, the executor of the laws, the executive branch, and the applier of the laws, the judicial branch. Maker of the laws, legislative, executor, executive, apply the laws, judicial. So it's not really about who has more power, but where does that power lie on what issues based on the authorities granted and what laws are in place. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief. So when it comes to the military, he has more power than Pelosi and the legislative branch when it comes to deciding when and where our troops may be able to go to do whatever they need to do. However, the legislative branch has more power because they can defund it and stop it through a lack of funding. They have the power of the purse strings. The president has more power because he has money set aside and he can still send them if he really needs to. And he can wage war without congressional approval, as long as it's not ridiculous. However, the legislative branch has more power because if he is getting ridiculous with how he wages war, and they believe he's exceeding his authorities on that, they can impeach him. So it's not a matter of who's more powerful, it's how you look at it. Okay, let's look at the border. In Article 4, Section 4, it says that the United States shall protect the states from invasion. All right, so first of all, the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch have an obligation to ensure border security. So who has more power in this one? The Constitution does. But there are laws on the books created by Congress for border security, for immigration, and so on and so forth. The laws exist. So now the president is executing those laws. The problem is now the legislative branch said, no, we don't want you executing those laws. They exist. He has the power to do that. And while they're on the books, there's really not a lot they can do to stop him from carrying out those laws. In fact, according to Article 2, he's constitutionally obligated to carry out those immigration laws. It says right there in Article 2, Section 3, I believe, that he will faithfully execute the laws of the United States. And it's his power to execute those laws. If they don't like him executing those laws, change the laws. Of course, better be careful with that. They might do it. So, is the Speaker of the House more powerful or as powerful or less powerful than the President? And the answer is yes and no to all. It depends on what issue we're talking about and where the authorities lie. You know, it's funny because I had someone not too long ago criticizing me saying, hey, Doug, you're now championing some of the overreach that Trump is doing that you were complaining about when Obama was doing it. And I backed him up and I said, no, wait a second. It comes down to what the issue is and how they're doing it. It comes down to authorities. President Obama was not executing immigration law. So he was going against what he's required to do. And he was using regulations and executive orders to then change laws and do things that Congress didn't want him doing. He doesn't have that kind of legislative authority. Meanwhile, we have a president who's using executive orders and pushing into place, kind of muscling into place in some ways, such as getting money for the border wall. And he's going to, all right, if you don't want to approve this bill, then I'm going to grab it from national security. I'm going to grab it from drug enforcement. Hey, he has that authority. The money's there for those reasons. So he's not going beyond what's been offered to him and what he has at his disposal to use as president of the United States. Ultimately, what it comes down to is nobody's more powerful than anybody else. And it's not supposed to be about power. We're not supposed to have anybody or any part of government that's more powerful than any other part. The power is distributed through an enumeration doctrine. In other words, the Constitution enumerates the authorities and powers that the parts of the federal government have. Our problem is not whether or not Trump can do this or Pelosi can do that or whatever. Our problem is we have a federal government in many cases that's doing a lot of things that the government as a whole is not supposed to do constitutionally. That's when we really run into problems. When we have a federal government that's getting involved in domestic issues that's never been authorized. When we've got a federal court system striking down state laws on state issues. And we've got a court striking down the actions of a president who's following legislation that's in place. And he's trying to execute that law. That's when we have a problem about power. Our problem is not whether or not Pelosi or Trump has more power, but the fact that the federal government as a whole has too much power. And that the courts have too much power. And sometimes a president, through executive action, executive orders, regulations, grabs too much power. So it's not a matter of who's more powerful than who. It's who's grabbing power they're not supposed to have in the first place. Thanks for spending the time with me. Don't forget, my books are online. Newest book, Promise of American Liberty, is on its way next week or two. Be sure to watch for it. Visit me at politicalpistachio.com, douglasvgibbs.com/books.php. I would like you to purchase my books or donate. Go to douglasvgibbs.com or politicalpistachio.com and donate, because everything I do is funded by book sales and donations. That's it. There's no day job. There's no big donor that's throwing a lot of money this way. It's a basically a hair of our chinny chin chin type of operation. But I want to keep doing what I do. I want to keep bringing you this information. So please, if you want to participate, feel free to do so. Until next time, stay constitutional.